Good morning. I'm Jim Gilmartin, and it's my privilege on behalf of the ECCL leadership team to welcome you to the 198th meeting of the ECCL. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate your time and interest. We are accepting questions during this meeting, and at the end of each speaker's comments, I'll ask you some questions or any comments you might have. We will try to answer as many as possible. However, we may have to limit questions, trying to be sensitive to time. Finally, we are recording the meeting, and you will be notified when it's available on the ECCL website. That's www.esterotoday.com. We are attempting to bring in our other members who are going to participate, and it appears we're having some problems. They're having computer problems to get on, so we're going to work through this as best we possibly can. So I'd like to just ask all of you to just take a moment of silence just to think about all of our friends, neighbors, and others that are suffering from this coronavirus. Thank you. I want to take a few minutes now to introduce the ECCL to those of you who are new to us and reintroduce the ECCL to our seasoned volunteers. The ECCL is a nonprofit, nonpartisan, non-political volunteer civic advocacy organization. Our purpose is to advocate for meaningful change through consensus-based advocacy and fact-based research, to develop relationships with key decision makers and respond to residents and business desires to maintain a high quality of life in the greater Estero area. We also aspire to make the greater Estero area the best place to live, work, and play. That's our vision. We're looking to make it a destination area. We have multiple focus areas to improve the economy and increase visitors to the greater Estero area, to advocate for payment of development-related infrastructure requirements and school financial needs, to advocate for improved water quality and controlling the red tide blue-green algae, and the septic pollution phase-out planning and funding, to challenge mining in the DRGR until there's a fact-based evidence that additional mining is needed. To support our efforts, we need to increase operating ECCL funds and the ECCL Foundation revenue sources. We need to increase the number of ECCL member organizations and to form coalitions that strengthen group influence on local and county matters by increasing ECCL's participation in selected local not-for-profits. Also, our advocacy councils have a series of operating goals for each one of their councils. Are there any questions or comments at this time regarding what I've just said about the ECCL? Anything at all? Okay. I see Mark has gotten to us. He solved some of his computer problems, and he's trying to make it happen.
Jim, Mr. McLain is in as a participant.
Oh, as a participant. Okay. That could be a bit of a problem. We'll try to work this thing out. Let me just see. Maybe I can unmute him. Just give me a second. I can't see him. Jon McLain, if you're out there and you can hear what I'm saying, just click on the bottom of the screen. It should be asking a question, and that may help me unmute you. And if we can't see you, we may be able to just hear you. Okay, there's one. I'm having a problem with this. It's not allowing me to unmute him.
I think I'm unmuted now.
Yeah, you're okay, but I'm talking about Jon McLain.
It just came across and said
Yes,
my
John.
connection is unstable.
Okay. I'm afraid I can't get, Mark, you still have the other, either your cell phone or something else is on. There you go.
Okay.
That's it. All right, good. Well, there's always a problem when you don't expect it. John is having a problem, and I don't know if we're going to get him back.
You'll get him.
Barry-
He's going out as a participant and will come back in on the link I sent him.
Okay.
Give it a second.
All right. So let's hope John gets back in here. Otherwise, we're all going to have to do a little song and dance to occupy the participants. There's about 40 of you out there, and we're sorry this is going down, but I can't control all of it.
You could do the other part of it.
Yeah. Okay. So, Mark Novitski, I'm sure most of you do. He's our Chief Operating Officer. John Quin is our Chief Financial Officer. Barry Freedman is our Chief Membership Development Officer. And Allan Bowditch is our Chief Communications Officer. Those are the folks that are smiling at you now. And they will be making some comments as time goes by. And I see Jon McLain. You have to unmute yourself, John. Just unmute your microphone. Look for a microphone. There it is. You're good. Speak up now. Can you hear us?
Me all right?
There you go.
How about
All right, John. Thank God Almighty. Okay. In any case, it's about time now to bring you on, John. So why don't I just do that and give you a little introduction. Jon McLain has served as District 3 Council member for the Village of Estero since June 2017. Several of his oversight responsibilities include the Estero Parkway, which has become really very nice work, nice job. The Stormwater Liaison. He's involved in tourist development as well. Before serving on the Village Council, John was with Coldwell Banker in Bonita Springs. He early served as Executive Vice President at Party City Holdings, Elmsford, New York, as Vice President and General Manager of Creative Expressions in Indianapolis, Indiana, and Vice President General Manager in Irving Paper Products in Irving, Massachusetts. John has agreed to come and talk to us about some transportation public works projects throughout Estero. So John, take it away. You're on.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate the introduction. It's good to go back in history a little bit, look at my crazy background. It's always good to be able to address the ECCL. So I enjoy these opportunities. So thank you again. Let me start this discussion with a little personal history of the Village of Estero's transportation evolution since 2008. You might ask why the year 2008. Well, that's the year that my wife Mary and I purchased our home in Estero along Estero Parkway. So reflecting back on what was going on in those days, if you looked at the intersection of Estero Parkway and 41 in those days, there was really only a stop sign to control the traffic entering 41. And this was definitely a very unsafe intersection at the time. The flyover that we all are used to right now in Estero Parkway at I-75 was under construction. Prior to that, going east, we had to go south to Corkscrew or north to Alico to go anywhere east. So what a great improvement that was to have the flyover. Corkscrew Road was 2 lanes, and believe it or not, it still is. And Bellaterra was considered to be way out there, at least at the time. Not so much these days. US 41 between Corkscrew and Estero Parkway was expanded to 4 lanes. I wonder if anybody can recall how long that project took to complete. I can remember it because it was a long time for me, long enough that I ended up having a flat tire on the roadway. And I also got in a car accident with a young girl running into the back of my car on Corkscrew Road at the traffic light. The Village of Estero, as you all know, was incorporated on December 31st, 2014. You know, looking back, you might say a lot has changed in a short 12-year span for a village of about 35,000 people. Looking forward, I must tell you to get ready for more change and all positive improvements that will occur in the village. As Jim indicated, I was asked to talk about transportation changes that are in process within the village and those that are about to become a reality. So let's go ahead and get started on that with one that's close to me, and that's Estero Parkway. This is the first major capital improvement program funded by the village of Estero. I was asked to be the liaison for this project and to develop a plan, gain approval from our citizens, and eventually the village council, and then oversee the implementation. This project is a $10 million capital budgeted project, and it's going to be partly funded by Lee County. When we incorporated as a village, the road Estero Parkway was in need of repair at that point. So that was back in 2014. And the Lee County is willing to back contribute to this project $2.2 million. So the actual cost to us will be reduced by that amount. That's involving the sidewalks that they agreed to put in and also repaving the road. The objectives of the projects, some of you may be familiar with it, but I'll go through those pretty quickly, is one, to mill and overlay the deteriorating roadway. That's basically to grind it down and repave it. The other objective was to improve the safety for all the users that bypass on that parkway. So we decided to install sidewalks along the entire parkway from Three Oaks all the way down to Walmart. Prior to that, they were kind of hit and miss on both sides of the road. We also decided that we would provide 7-foot bicycle lanes adjacent to the roadway. And you may ask, why 7 feet? Well, that's the new recommended standard for bicycle lanes, if you can accommodate those in the landscape that you've got. We're not going to be able to use 7-foot lanes in every project we do because some places just don't have the physical space to put them in. But we look at Estero Parkway, and that's a great addition for that. We also added U-turn options to assist drivers exiting their developments during busy times. As you drive on Estero Parkway, many people know that the speed limit is 45. Unfortunately, there's people that go 55 or 60. I think the average speed was close to 52. So what happens in busy times, if people are a little leery about going out on the parkway and going across 2 lanes into the median and then out, we've provided for all the developments the opportunity to take a right-hand turn, go down, make a U-turn and go back. We thought that was preferable to putting a blockade in there to avoid, confrontation, because a lot of times there's not a lot of traffic out there. So that's a great change, I think, that's in there. We also added larger capacity stacking lanes to enable drivers to exit the through lane of traffic prior to turning into the development. So what that basically does is allow a car that wants to make a left-hand turn to get into a turning lane out of the main flow of traffic to avoid a rear end, as people are going 50 miles an hour and you're slowing down to 25 or 30 to make a left-hand turn in development. So those stacking lanes, I think, will be a good opportunity for us. We also are adding street lighting that will improve the safety for all users in the evening hours, allow users to safely walk in the evenings on the new sidewalks, and to highlight the beautiful landscape that we've got in the evenings. We put what we call a pork chop in down by Walmart and the Rusty's restaurant down there. We eliminated left-hand turns out of that intersection, both from Walmart and from Rusty's. This will avoid, I think any of you have been on the parkway here recently prior to this change, people would come out of Walmart or Rusty's and they would actually block the through traffic trying to make a left-hand turn. We had a couple accidents there, nothing serious, because the line of sight was pretty good, but I think that's a great improvement for safety in there also. And then the final improvement to the parkway is clearly the most obvious, and that's the enhanced landscaping palette that's being installed for this project. It includes a wide variety of mostly, not all, mostly native plantings offering a splash of color year-round with a variety of shapes and sizes. The abundant amount of landscape is intended to help reduce the overall speed on a very flat and straight roadway. The experts, traffic people tell me that the landscaping will provide it in a future date, kind of a canopy, giving people that sense of space, and it should slow them down. So we're hoping that that's an objective can be accomplished. So where are we on the project? Those of you who don't drive it all the time, give you a quick recap. We are on track to see this project completed on time and within budget. And some of you may think this is pretty novel concept for a public project. I personally feel that this is what you should expect from your village leadership. Completion date is December 31st, 2020. There will be some touch up that goes on after that to replace dead plants and miscellaneous things, but the main crews will be out of the area by December 31st. So the landscape is about 80% complete. Irrigation's about 90. Irrigation wells, there's 3 of them to water all of this. They're all installed and complete. Sidewalks are installed and being utilized by a good number of people, even though they are blocked off because of construction ongoing in that area. Street lighting is about 95% complete. And that's a great thing, because if you go down there now in the evening, it's no longer a dark dungeon. And then the roadway milling and paving started the 10th, and actually last night, they actually paved the inside lanes going eastbound or the north side of the road. So we've got about 25% of the road already paved, and it's actually already striped this morning. So they made good progress last night. We just hope the weather continues to be good. And then the last item is we're going to have a ribbon cutting probably in the middle part of December, held at the Cascades development, just to celebrate the opening of the road. We'll ask some dignitaries. We'd love to have the ECCL present, and I'm inviting anybody that's listening to this to come to that. What you need to do is to, probably on the ECCL site, but also the Estero website, you can key into that and get the date that we actually do it. We'll give you about 3 weeks notice. So I want to get the road paved, striped, and all that before we announce that that ribbon cutting that we're going to have. So the next project that we've got that is dear to everybody's heart is Corkscrew Road traffic light at Lowe's. You know, this is an unusual endeavor for the village of Estero to pursue, but we looked at this as a safety habit or a safety event. You know, as most of you know, Corkscrew Road is a Lee County road, and they have no plans to install a traffic signal at this light now or in the future. So we looked at this as an important safety thing, and so we moved it forward to fund this project. And the reason for that is there's been numerous accidents there, some pretty serious. One so serious that a young student from Florida Gulf Coast was actually killed a couple years back. So we've been looking at this, and sometimes these things take a little bit of time to make happen. But I can tell you that on November 4th at the village council meeting, we approved the funding for this capital project in the amount of $792,000. It includes a 10% contingency. Seems expensive for one single light to me, but it's a fairly good span, and that's cost is the cost of it. So what the village has done is we entered into an agreement with Lee County that we would fund it and they would construct the traffic light. So Lee County is now putting this project out to bid now that we've approved the funding, and completion is expected by the end of 2021. Now, as part of this, though, that's important is that at the Corkscrew Crossings development, which is by the Estero Bay Chevrolet, where you go in there, which is where the accident was, it's stock development is looking at developing a development called Corkscrew Crossings. And they're going to install a frontage road that runs right along 41 there and ends at where the old Ruby Tuesday used to be. And that's where the traffic light is going to be. So obviously, to make this thing fully functional, we need that frontage road to be installed somewhere in the time frame of 2021. So checking on that yesterday, it looks like Stock Development is actively pursuing that project. They're going to look like they're going to do the commercial part of it first, and part of the agreement of their development order will require them to put that frontage road in as quickly as possible. So that'll be a nice change. So by the end of 2021, we should have a stoplight there. Now, the next item, I-75 interchange, we've seen that construction going on for quite some time. At a recent council meeting several weeks ago, FDOT actually gave us an update on that and indicated that the project is moving according to plan. The project is going to provide for decrease in the traffic load in there by putting in 2 northbound lanes and 2 southbound lanes. And the idea there is that will allow more stacking and obviously more opportunity for people to get through the intersection if they're not turning either north or south in there. So I think that'll be a good project. They're also going to install bicycle lanes in there. They won't be 7 feet, but there'll be lanes through there and pedestrian sidewalks. The entrance and exit lanes, which is one of the reasons it's taken some time, are going to be extended to about 1,500 feet. So when you actually enter or exit 75, you're going to have a lot more time to be able to accelerate or decelerate to get onto Corkscrew. So what's going on? The FDOT projects the completion of this project to be in spring of 2021. And so that's coming right around the corner in there. Now they're going to do basic landscaping at the conclusion in the spring of 2021. And for some reason, they want to come back in 2023 and 24, and they're going to enhance the landscape at that point. And when they do that, the village of Estero will be involved in the planning of that to make sure that we accelerate, because that's really the main entrance for folks to enter into Estero. So we'll participate in how they do that landscape. That's a little bit of a delay, but that's the way it is at this point. Now, another project is Corkscrew Road widening. So now that the interstate interchange is being completed, the work on Corkscrew can commence. And Lee County is working on getting this project out to bid. They're expected to hire a contractor in early 2021, so right after the interchange is done. And the preliminary scope at this point is to leave the existing traffic lanes, which come from I-75 to Ben Hill Griffin in place. So what that is 2 lanes going east and 3 lanes going west. Then they're going to install 6 lanes from Ben Hill Griffin to just before Wildcat Run. And then after that, they'll install 4 lanes from Ben Hill all the way out to the eastern side of Bellaterra. And they will provide pedestrian pathways along the both sides of the road. There'll be bicycle lanes. They'll put in street lighting and county landscaping. So what Estero has done is we are working with Lee County, and we're going to want to enhance the landscaping, not to the extent that Estero Parkway is, but we're going to elevate it above the Lee County normal standards, which is what you see on 3 Oaks and many of the Lee County roads in there. And we're also going to upgrade the lighting so that it matches what's going on Estero Parkway. So those will be nice improvements. I don't have a completion date at this point, but I think they got to get it started and we'll get a better idea where that's going to be. One other traffic situation that's going on is on US 41 and Pelican Colony, the traffic signal going on in there. Those that don't enter and exit at the Pelican County area probably drive by that and are not worried about it too much. But there's been several accidents there. In fact, one of them, they've just put in a brand new sheriff's substation there. Shortly after they moved down there, one of the sheriff's patrol cars was involved in an accident. So this is a priority. Now, I reached out this week to the folks that are actually going to be doing the work on there, and that's going to be Oak Brook Properties. They're the people that did Coconut Mall and several other big real estate projects in there. So, obviously this has been identified as a dangerous intersection. It's going to be funded and controlled by Oak Brook Properties, the developer, and also it'll be funded by London Bay / Lennar Homes. There's an agreement between London Bay and Lennar Homes at the end of Coconut, and I'm not sure who's going to put the money up, but there's going to be money funded by them. This project's already got approval from FDOT to move forward. So Oak Brook is thinking that they're going to start design activity in 2021, and construction should start by the end of 2021 or early 2022. And they think it can be completed within a 1-year time frame. So that'll be a nice improvement for those folks that have to enter and exit that area. A project that we've just completed that some of you may or may not know, and that's the Williams Road by Estero High School. We installed some turn lanes in there because there was some traffic congestion, and similar to Estero Parkway, the way it was before is to make left-hand turns into the school or right-hand turns into the school, you actually had to slow the traffic down. So what we ended up doing is we installed right and left-hand turn lanes at the Estero bus ramp and student parking lots to avoid that kind of a problem. This is going to improve traffic, which is picking up in that area. That project was about $630,000 to install, and it was completed in October of this year. Just one other one I want to talk about, and that's Williams Road, Atlantic Gulf. A lot of you may be aware of this. This is where the Walmart is, not Walmart, but Walgreens drugstore. And it's where there's a sign that says no left-hand turn. Well, the majority of people make that left-hand turn. And sometimes there's a police officer there and you get a ticket. So we're going to redo that and force people to make the right. And, people may not like that, but we're going to also install down just a little bit further by the Estero Life Care Center. I'm not sure if that's like 100 yards or 150 yards. There'll be actually a roundabout there so that people will make the right, make the roundabout, and then shoot back to 41. So that'll make that a safer thing. And it'll also improve the traffic flow along that road. So where we are on that is we're just in the preliminary design concept. I've seen some, we'll fine tune that just a little bit more. And then we're going to get a contract for the design, and permitting will be brought to the council pretty shortly. So we're probably looking at a year and a half before you really see any real changes in that area in there. So that's a good improvement. Now, I looked at our CIP or capital improvement program, and some of you in the ECCL have looked at that. There are many more transportation projects that are on the books. They're in the capital improvement program. Obviously, with COVID and the like, capital improvement programs have to be reviewed regularly because there's some shortfalls of capital coming into all municipalities at this point. So to try to talk about future transportation changes that are involved in the CIP right now might be a little premature. We're going to be aggressive. I think good news is that originally we thought that shortfalls could be 30%. Those were the projections out of Lee County and I think out of the state. I was at a Tourist Development Council meeting yesterday, and it looks like we're going to end up only having a shortfall of about 10%. Not good to have a shortfall, but 10's a lot better than 30. So that's some good news in there. So there are lots of other projects going on. That's about what I wanted to talk about. Jim did forward to me a question yesterday, and there may be some others, but let me address the question I received yesterday. And that has to do with the often discussed a purchase of the Seminole Railroad. That runs across Estero Parkway. It actually runs from Alico all the way to Estero Parkway, from Estero Parkway into, I think it goes all the way down to, what is it, blanking out on the name in here. It's down into northern Collier County. So what's been going on is we've been working with Bonita Springs, ourselves, Collier County and Lee County to say, is this something we want to pursue? And we've said yes. And actually Seminole Railroad has indicated they're willing to get into negotiations to establish a price to turn that over. So one other party joined that FISMA we just talked about, and that's the Trust for Public Lands. And that's a national concern that we actually utilized when we purchased the Estero on the River property, the 62 acres, now 67 acres. So they're actually helping us negotiate this. So that partnership is entered into an agreement to have a appraisal done on that property. And so the appraisal actually is being completed at this point. And so really the only thing that we have to worry about at this point would be what's the price of the appraisal and how does that balance with what the Seminole folks want for the railroad. So that's where the negotiation goes on. And I think that's where, the professionals from the Land Trust, Public Lands Trust, will be able to help us on that. So really no status changes in there, but there's activity more so that if you looked at this a year ago, we're much further ahead at this point, but I sure can't tell you where we're going to end up on that project at this point. It's all about Seminole Railroad and what they want to try to get for the property value in there. So Jim, if there are any questions, I'm more
Yeah, there is, John. John, thanks. There is one other question from one of the participants. I'll read it to you and see what you can do. After Estero Parkway is completed, what is the village's plan for controlling speeding? Right now, even with lanes blocked off, speeding is an ongoing issue back to when I moved here in 2013. It does not appear to be a place for the sheriff to set up radar as they did in the past on the median.
Well, I don't know about the median and the radar. I think they usually park their cars there. I'm not sure how they actually do that. But let me address the speed. This project took us quite some time to come to a plan to develop it. And the reason for that, we initiated the plan, wanted to restore the deteriorating roadway, but the other primary objective was to improve the safety of the roadway to reduce speed. And we looked at a lot of concepts, and we looked at as one was roundabouts. And in public meetings that we conducted, roundabouts were not in favor, even though now we're putting some down in other locations. On Estero Parkway, there was a sound voice from the public that they did not want a roundabout. That would have definitely helped the traffic control. So we also have looked at traffic signals. And we did not meet the warrant requirements for that to occur. You need a certain amount of traffic to go forward with that. I mean, look at Colony that we talked about early on 41. Look at the traffic flow in there, and it's taken this long to get a light in there. So a light's going to be difficult. So the alternative that we came up with, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, is that if we put in heavy landscaping, similar to what not Corkscrew, but Coconut has, that creates an envelope over the road at a future date. Experts say that should help. But other than that, the other thing we've done is the current lanes on the roadway are 12 feet wide. And we looked at a variety of sizes, and the standard actually around the county is 11. So we ended up actually, we're going to be reducing the traffic lanes from 12 to 11. And that's going to help accommodate the 7-foot bike lane because we didn't do anything on the medians in there. So we'll continue to look at this. We've talked to the sheriffs. They can't control speed. They can't be there every day. So the alternatives are, let's hope this landscape works. We've made turnoffs to make it safer to get off, but it's not going to prevent people that want to go well in excess of the speed limit. That's difficult for us to control. So I wish I had a better answer, but that's where we are.
Thanks, John. Barry Freedman?
Yeah, John, FDOT has to move a traffic light on the east side of 41 in front of where Aldi is going to have its traffic turn in. Any idea when that's going to happen? Because they can't open and can't do the turn in until that street light is moved or removed.
You know, I know that Aldi's, there's been a lot of comments about that because the building looks like it's completely done at this point. There are a couple issues with Aldi's not opening. And I'd be frank, there, I was not aware of the traffic signal. I do know
Not
that
a traffic signal, but it's an overhead traffic light. Remember about a year ago, we put in traffic lights up and down 41.
Yep.
And that was fine at the time, but now that one has to be moved in order to allow for the traffic to flow into and out of Aldi.
And when you say traffic light, is it going to be an actual stop?
No,
Right.
it's a street light. It's already there.
Oh, just a street light. Well, they're
It's a
digging
street
on that
light.
right now. The problems they have in that area are there are a couple. One, they didn't plan the irrigation, not irrigation, but the drainage properly.
I know that.
It's supposed to tie into the Vines community. The other is they ran into trouble with the cable folks with Comcast. You know, I guess they must have had a major line going there. So they're digging that out right now. And then they didn't provide the cut that needs to be there. So I believe, Barry, that all of that's under heavy construction right now. So I think within the next 2 months, they'll get all that done. I don't think much before that. Moving a street lamp is a relatively easy thing to do. You just have to, you know, put in one of the big pillars in there. So I was by there yesterday, I believe, and they're doing quite a bit of construction right along the roadway. So that should occur here pretty quickly.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. There's another question from Bill. Bill, if you're on, can hear me, make sure you're on mute and ask your question.
You got me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Go ahead.
Okay, John, when you come out of Walmart, you can't turn left. You have to turn right. And there's 2 lanes. Everyone's making U-turns. And that light, the corner of Estero Parkway and 41 is a short light. Has anyone looked at this?
Yeah, that intersection right there where you come out of Walmart and Rusty's, we put what we call a pork chop in there. So you're right, on Estero Parkway now at 41, there's a lot of traffic making U-turns right there. And they go into Rusty's, or I think that's into that shopping center. There's a restaurant in there and there's a workout place. We are providing from Estero Parkway a left-hand turn lane into that parkway or into that development there. So that should avoid the majority of the U-turns that are occurring right now. And that should improve the traffic flow getting onto 41, because I've had to wait there quite a bit. And then there's also going to be a left-hand turn lane there to go into Walmart. So if you come south on 41, take a left going east on Estero Parkway, there'll be an immediate left-hand turn that you can go into the Walmart there. So that should avoid some of the congestion you find right now.
Thank you, John.
That should be completed here within the next week.
Okay, thanks, John. I appreciate that. We've got a time issue here, so I'm going to have to cut back on any other questions so we can move forward with the program. But I do appreciate it, John. Nice
Thanks
job.
for the opportunity. Anytime.
Okay, I'd like to move ahead and talk a little bit about an issue that has been around for a while, and that is the Bayview development by London Bay Homes at the end of Coconut Road. Recently, the Bonita Springs Council gave London Bay Homes the green light to proceed with their Bayview development at the western end of Coconut near the Hyatt Hotel. The ECCL offers congratulations and a successful conclusion of the project. However, some believe the ECCL opposed this development. To be clear, the ECCL never opposed the planned Bayview development. During the last 2 years, the ECCL has only advocated on behalf of residents and boaters in our area who expressed a desire for convenient access to the Estero Bay. Now, despite not overcoming the single boat ramp sticking point, much credit belongs to ECCL's team of Allan Bowditch, Herb Nathanson, and the late Bob King. London Bay Homes did listen to them and made several significant changes to their initial plans. They widened the single ramp to 18 feet. They made special provisions for paddle boaters and kayakers. They significantly improved the design of the staging area for parking boat trailers. They increased on-site parking for boat trailers from 10 to 15. They improved the moorings where boats would be secured when launching or returning to the area. They enhanced the opportunity to come and look at the sunset, and they agreed that the access to Estero Bay would be in perpetuity. Although disappointed we were not successful in increasing the single boat ramp to 2, we appreciate the changes that London Bay Homes made and wish them success going forward. And to Alan, Irv, and Bob, we extend our sincerest thanks for a significant amount of time and effort supporting our resident boaters. I'd like to go on now and talk a little bit about some of the things that are happening that we've been involved with. I'm very pleased to announce that Mayor Ribble has signed the Southwest Florida Regional Resilience Compact. We talked about that before in previous meetings. Since the 1980s, the direct cost of hurricane events in the US has increased 11-fold, from $3.8 billion annually to $43.3 billion in 2020. The compact supports engaging regional resilience rather than solely on individual jurisdictional levels. Led by Professor Mike Savarese at FGCU, the compact is currently being organized for Charlotte, Lee, and Collier counties, including the 10 encompassing municipalities. The mayor has asked the ECCL to play a supportive role in the effort, and we will. We applaud village leadership for their progressive thinking and supporting these efforts. Are there any questions about that issue at all? Okay. Since there are no questions from the folks on the meeting, I do have a question that I will answer from Dominic Pelosi. We have lived in Bella Lago for 11 years and are still waiting for an Estero zip code. Will this ever become a reality, or will we continue to be considered a part of Estero with a Fort Myers zip code? Nick Bedos, who's another Village Estero Council person who has been involved in this issue, responded to our inquiry. Nick said, "This issue has been a very frustrating problem that I've worked on for over 6 years. Unfortunately, that we haven't been able to get the post office to do anything. I'm convinced that the only way this will happen is if the US Congress passes a bill forcing the post office to make this change. We did have 2 bills prepared by Congressman Rooney, but unfortunately, neither bill had bipartisan support. It became clear that Congress did not consider it an important issue. Perhaps our new congressman would pick up the torch and bring it to a successful conclusion." I appreciate Nick responding to us on that. Now I'd like to have Mark Novitski give us some highlights of some of the Advocacy Council activity. Mark, you're on, turn on your mic. There you go.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, even though we haven't been meeting in person and not a lot of Zoom meetings, we have been working things. The Culture and Recreation Council, as Jon McLain was talking about, sidewalks and bike paths, linkage is a very big deal. How do we get to people out of their communities and doing things? So the bike paths, bike lanes, and the sidewalks on Estero Parkway are a great start. We're also going to have that on phase 1, as he talked about, for Corkscrew Road. So by 2023, the summer of 2023, we'll have a bike lanes, wide enough bike lanes and sidewalks all the way from 41 to east of Bellaterra, which is a great deal. November is Veterans Awareness Month. And we've got a lot of veterans in the Estero area, and we're working on a Veterans Recognition Pocket Park. Judy Hammond and her committee went to the Estero High School and had some students do some concept drawings. We've also got a local artist doing a concept drawing. In the future, you will probably see a survey letting the residents of Estero, the greater Estero area, come up with, hey, what do you think is the best design? Alan and the communications team are working on that. In the Community Development Council, the village is working on the Land Development Code. And we've had a couple of challenges that we've identified that we think need to be addressed in the code. We also heard the School District of Lee County come before the council on their 2 schools on 3 Oaks Parkway. one of the concerns of both the transportation and the community development is how do we get to traffic in and out? How do we do the stacking? You know, do we keep them off the road? You know, how do we do that? Those schools originally were supposed to open in 2022. Now they're looking for August of 2023. So the community development and transportation will continue to give you updates on how the traffic will flow in and out of there. The Education Council, they're trying to figure out how to do junior achievement without physically being in the classroom. As a junior achievement volunteer, you know, I love going in and working with the students, and I kind of miss them. So I think everybody does. We got to figure out how to do that. The Environmental Council, the village is embarked on an area to try to convert the septic tanks to sewers. Okay, that's a big deal, and we're trying to work with the village and understand and even do some metrics. The village has approximately 400 septic tanks. Bonita's got 1,000. We have no idea how many are right now are in San Carlos Park, and there's a bunch out east of Estero out in unincorporated Lee County. So we're trying to do metrics and understand, because all that flows into either the Estero River or the Estero Bay. The Health Council, they've been meeting the various committees on that. We actually got a new member on the youth, which, you know, we've got a bunch of older citizens here on the screen today, and we need to make sure we get the youth and the children's concerns and involvement. Everybody's smiling. That's good.
Oh, God.
And yeah, okay. And one of the things we're working on, again, you know, November is Veterans Health Month, is to put together or get together a coalition of healthcare providers to take care of our vets. You know, it's a big issue. And the Transportation Council, we had our first formalized Adopt a Highway on US 41. We had over 11 volunteers spend over 30 hours and picked up over 300 pounds of trash. If you're interested, the next 2 dates are already full, but if your team wants to volunteer for that, contact Julie at ECCLHWY41@gmail.com. Either be a driver or put a team together, and we'll recognize your team. The last thing on transportation is we track kind of the community numbers on East Corkscrew from Ben Hill Griffin East. And as of right about now, the place is over 1,600 homes occupied. Wild Blue is over 300, and Corkscrew Shores is about built out. So we've still got more development coming, and that's just going to put more stress on Corkscrew Road. Thanks, Jim. That's all I have today.
I appreciate that, Mark. Thank you. Are there any questions for Mark from the audience? Okay, no questions. So I'd like Allan Bowditch, our Chief Communications Officer, to make a few comments. Allan?
Yeah, thank you, Jim, and good morning, everyone. Well, since I spoke last at the October meeting, we've actually had a significant number of communication items sent out, which have all, I think, had very good responses. We gave a report on the October monthly meeting, and of course, there will be another one, which my colleague Karen Katz will be providing on today's meeting. We've sent out a note about who and what is the ECCL as a kind of introduction and a reminder of what we're about, some of the things which you, Jim, spoke about at the beginning of the meeting. We did an update also on the Estero Riverland purchase, the status of the London Bay View development, which again was mentioned earlier, and of course, communication about what Barry just mentioned on the Adopt a Highway program. The Communications Committee is very committed to extending a lot of what we do in communicating to everyone via Facebook. And I'm pleased to say that over the last few weeks, a lot more steps have been taken to enhance the communication via that kind of media. And of course, we'll be taking further steps on that as we go forward. We're about to release the 4th Greater Estero Community Report this month. We should have that out probably during the course of next week. Two interesting features, which I hope at least you'll be interested in, focus on two important health items. The first is an article about the dangers that are linked to blue-green algae. If anyone is interested in this particular topic, aside from the article itself, there's an extremely fascinating documentary which is available on Netflix called The Toxic Puzzle. This is a short 40-minute documentary which Dr. Cox and his team have looked at in relation to this issue of blue-green algae. And it's very watchable. I've already watched it. And if you're interested, I suggest you look that up. So Toxic Puzzle, it's called. The other article in the next fourth GECR is an update from Lee Health about some of the commitments and developments that they've been doing since the COVID-19 pandemic has obviously affected everyone. That too is, I hope you'll find a great deal of interest in what they've developed and some of the further things that they provide at Lee Health here in Coconut Point. Some further work is going on. I'll have more to say perhaps at the next meeting about looking into the history of the ECCL, which is something we, again, are planning to do. And so with that, for the moment, that's about all I can say. So thank you for listening.
Okay, Alan, any questions from the participants? Okay, here's a question, not necessarily for Alan, but it comes from John George. The place at Corkscrew is 1,300 homes, not 1,600. About 900 homes are closed and occupied. I guess that's just a clarification. Thanks very much, John. Appreciate it. Okay, so now I'd like to turn it over to John Quin, our Chief Financial Officer. He'll talk a little bit about our financial position. John?
Thank you, Jim. Good morning, everyone. Our revenue for the month was $1,850, and this is service revenue. We had no membership, we had no contributions. Year to date, our revenue is $40,205. The balance sheet and the statement of income are on and posted on our Estero Today website. And if you're interested in looking at the detail, you can go to that site. In 2018 and 19, we spent almost every dime of income we had. This left the ECCL vulnerable for income reductions and unanticipated expenses and no provision for projects or contingencies. In 2020, EMT purposely tried to reduce the amount of the spending to give us a carry forward surplus. Right now, we have a surplus that should be able to continue us through the end of the year. A budget request is going to be going out to the board, the EMT, and to the councils to identify needs for the coming year. The Strategic Planning Task Force has brought forward numerous recommendations that will have to be resourced. I'm looking forward to completing the budget process by December 15th. So look, I really want to identify not only just overhead issues, but projects that need funding need to be identified. The Advocacy Foundation received no contributions in October. The fund is used to support essential needs of the ECCL and to support related nonprofit organizations that we identify as beneficial to the Estero area. It's crucial that we have adequate funds to support this cause. This, in the last few weeks, we have registered ECCL. In the past, ECCL was a term that we used quite liberally throughout all our media. However, we never had a registration of that. We have now registered ECCL and it links directly to our corporation. And it'll be a renewal period every 5 years, but we are at least safeguarded in the fact that we can use that name without affecting anyone else. My last talk is about assistance. If you have a background in accounting, finance, fundraising, or monitoring government spending, I'm really looking for some help. I am a one-man show at this particular point in time, and it's a little lonely. You're joining the firm, joining us would not be a heavy burdened type situation, but it would be resourcing to the ECCL as needs become available. We also need help in the budget and finance oversight of ECL and of the community. So there's a lot of money going on, money issues going on in the Estero area, and we want to make sure we keep an eye on it. You can reach me at ecclcfo@gmail.com, and I'll reach out and discuss ECCL needs. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, John. Are there any questions for John at this time? Okay, no questions. Next is Barry Freedman, our Chief Membership Development Officer. Barry?
Thanks, Jim. And with just a few minutes to go, I think we can get everybody out of here by 11 o'clock as promised. For the past few months, we've been researching the possibility of a new project. And while I can't tell you much about it right now, I do need some help. I'm looking for some volunteers to do a telephone survey of some organizations within and without the state of Florida. I need about 6 people. You won't have to make more than 1, maybe 2 phone calls to complete a questionnaire that we've already got ready for you that you can modify to suit your own voice. But if you're willing to help me out and sometime in the next 2 or 3 weeks, complete this telephone survey, please get in touch with me. You reach me at ecclmshp@gmail.com. You can do it today or tomorrow. I'd appreciate it. And I'll get right to you and tell you all about the project and how you can help us with this telephone survey. Thank you.
Thanks, Barry. Are there any questions for Barry? Okay. Are there any questions at all for anybody before we adjourn the meeting? Good. You're all satisfied. Thanks for joining us today. A special thanks to our speaker, Jon McLain. Really appreciate him taking the time to do that. Did a nice job on that, John. Thank you. And to all of you who are participating in our meeting. We're finding that we're getting quite a number of people participating. It's really great. We appreciate that. And when we publish the link to the recording of the meeting, we're getting several hundreds of people are going in and taking a look at it. That's good. We're really pleased about that and should continue on. The next meeting is going to be Friday, December 11th at 10 a.m. It'll likely be a Zoom meeting. Please stay safe and please wear a mask. Thanks. Meeting is adjourned.